Told through the stories of today's leaders in finance, tech, real estate, culture, and sustainability. We share the boundless and beautiful technology of nature, where health is the new luxury and opportunities for a better future are being crafted by the second. This is Planet Gold, with your host, Enzo Di Taranto.
Welcome to this new edition of Planet Gold, my new eco podcast to re-engineer the global climate agenda at the Horizon 2030. Today, we speak with Max Studennikoff, the founder and president of the CC Forum, a renowned global platform of impact investors that pursue the objective of sensitizing and engaging traditional investors towards impact investing in the blue and the green economies worldwide. Max is an active participant at the ongoing World Economic Forum in Davos. And we discuss many interesting points, one of which is what I define as the gap between the timing of the world politics and the timing of technology and the real economy. So one good example is the blockchain and AI that evolved at such an exponential pace that governments and multilateral institutions like the European Union and the United Nations don't match that speed and struggle to govern and regulate these dynamics. We also discuss about the transition between COP28 in Dubai, where we co-produce two important events at the Hilton and Grand Hyatt in Dubai, and the stop of Davos and the road to COP29. And another good example of the dichotomy between the timing of the global politics and the timing of the real economy is exactly COP28, where after months of negotiations, millions of dollars of budget and tons of CO2 emissions, world leaders finally agreed on the concept of a gradual transition between the fossil-based economy and a renewable energy system. And so just to agree on that concept, it took a lot of time and of money. In the meantime, in the real economy, the government of the United Arab Emirates has built and launched the greatest solar plant outside Abu Dhabi that fosters and propels the transition and the use of solar energy to complement the use of fossil fuel. And so once again, the United Arab Emirates put themselves in the lead of this new economy. Anyway, many interesting considerations with Max Studennikoff. Enjoy the full conversation. Always stay inspired and stay tuned on the Planet Gold Eco Podcast. Max Studennikoff, thank you very much to be our guest on the Planet Gold podcast. This is a series to redefine the global climate agenda together with world leaders in the sustainability and impact investment space like you. You are the founder of the CC Forum. So can you share with us what is your life story and how at a certain point of your life you got the inspiration and took the decision to fund the CC Forum?
Well, thank you very much indeed, Anthony, for your interest in my humble personality. I certainly don't deserve all of that attention. If I were to, I've been wearing a lot of hats in my life, and if I were to tell you about each and every, we wouldn't have to cudgel that into 2 or 3 of our podcasts. So I'll be very quick here, okay? I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've got 25 plus business experience, getting up, growing, and selling companies worldwide. But what I'm doing with CC Forum has got nothing to do with the commercial. It's not commercial. It's not. I'm not saying it's a non-profitable. It's not a commercial project whatsoever, because I'd been a sought-after speaker at a variety of conferences and forums dedicated to climate change and sustainability and waste management and healthcare and education and whatnot. But every time I went to each of those, I just couldn't help feeling that, yes, fair enough. You know, these guys are just getting people together and they define the tasks and the problems in the right way, but no one is coming up with solutions. And I've always thought, and I've always believed in the power of private wealth more than in any of the sweeping statements by the policymakers, for example, okay? Or another alternative, if they're scientists, no matter how authoritative or renowned, is taking the lead, very few people listen to him. And I certainly mean on the part of the investors, because the investors are, unfortunately or fortunately, are more concerned with money making and all this stuff. So, and I thought, you know, it would be a great idea if I were to set about creating a dedicated platform that would be wholly dedicated and laser focused on investing in sustainability. Okay, and that's, I mean, the whole idea of CC Forum was born here in Davos. You wouldn't believe it. 7 years ago, I had a cup of coffee with the then governor of Bank of England. I don't want to mention the name, obviously, he's very well known. Actually, I bumped into him yesterday, right in the street. You can only do it in Davos. And he said, we had a very fleeting conversation, but said, Max, this is not what the world needs. We don't need another Vanity Fair. But if you were to set about creating a dedicated platform where you could just get people together and get them brainstorm and get their money where their mouth is, that's what the world needs. So CC Forum is actually, yes, it's a conference in format, but essentially it's a club of impact investors, okay? It's a conglomeration, a congregation of investors, both institutional and private ones, who are more concerned with the impact they're making through their investment rather than pure profit making. So, and we've just embarked on this path back in 2018, where I can just add some blood-freezing details here. No one was giving me a dime at the time. I had to sell one of my properties, and I invested £300,000 into the first edition of CC Forum in 2018, knowing full well that it's just the beginning of the journey, and you know we have to make a lot of sacrifice, but this is how the path began to get trodden.
Nice, absolutely, and that's a very inspiring life story, because you know, if many more people would take those life decisions, right, to take their own resources and invest in something bigger than
quite involved. I won't deny that, but I was adamant, persistent, and I knew exactly what I was doing. And people were laughing at me, literally. 6 or 7 years ago, Max, another green finance conference. Come on, give me a break. You know, such a crowded space, whatever. But then things began to change when I first was invited by His Serene Highness Prince Albert of Monaco, who actually had a longish conversation with me, one-to-one, so much so that one of the ministers was kept waiting in the waiting room because he was going into all the minutiae, all the details as to what the agenda, what the topics, the media partners, guests of honor, sponsors, everything, before he granted his name and patronage to the Monegasque edition of CC Forum.
Yeah,
and then
amazing.
Rolling down the hill like a snowball. So now we don't have to nudge investors. They're nudging us. Thanks to $1 trillion opportunities. And fortunately, we're bombarded by various sorts of projects and startups and concepts.
Yes.
Really breaking. And the whole mission of the ethos of CC Forums is to make them heard, seen, and funded.
Totally. And so, Max, first of all, congratulations for having succeeded in engaging such a high level of endorsement and support from, you mentioned Prince Albert of Monaco. You have the endorsement of the Queen Elizabeth, I mean, the royal family of England, of some of the royal families in the Gulf states and so on. So that is really commendable. But my question is the following: apart from engaging, let's say, the elites, right, which are obviously those who have the power and resources to move the climate agenda, forward in a powerful way. But if you would describe how your work would impact everyday persons, because in the end, protecting and regenerating the planet is a mission that benefits everybody on this planet. So how would you... Yeah.
Provocative question you're asking, Enzo. You only ask those. You only ask tricky questions. I've never had a single straightforward one from you. And every time, in order to try and answer them, I have to exert all of my brain capacity.
Good, good. It's mental stretching. But go ahead.
Brain stretching, exactly. I'll try and answer this question, respond to this question in an oblique way. See, here is we have a bit of a paradox, a bit of a controversy or conflict, if you want. We are a highly elitist conference, but not in the sense of it's being like, I mean, journalists are always tagging the forum with like, oh, Max, they only get together the rich and the famous. Possibly, because unfortunately or fortunately, it is not within the hands of 8 billion people living on the little place we call the Earth to make those decisions, right? It is within the hands of the few.
True.
Our mission has been and will be chaperoning them, guiding them in the right way. And through the synergies, through the impact we've been trying to extract and hoping to do so in the time to come from within the elite, that will influence, hopefully, the larger audience. Because absolutely, you're right. Each and every person living on Earth, without even knowing sometimes, because there are some, I mean, which is really, I'm just going off the tangent here, but there are quite a few people who just still haven't cottoned on to the gravity of the situation. Eventually, it will impact each and every one of those living on Earth, okay? So what we're just trying to do is basically combining the straight with the round, if you want. We're trying to make an impact for the whole of the population of the Earth through the decision-making as channeled, as funneled through the elite, by the elite. Is that answering your question?
No, that's a conduit. That it's a medium. Exactly.
And we have a variety of tools, for it. Renowned speakers, scientists, members of the royal families, celebrities, policymakers. It's all akin to brewing a soup, where each ingredient has to be just right.
Yes.
It's shouldn't be too salty or too spicy or too sweet, whatever. It has to be just right. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. And as you say, I mean, if I can use this analogy, the cookers are a few, while the consumers are the many. So by influencing those who, you know, decide what ingredients to put in the equation, then we can certainly have a faster and more compelling impact. You mentioned, and you know, I don't want to be too spiritual or, you know, metaphysical, because we want to really have our feet on the ground. But I must say that shaking the consciousness of the powerful of this world is very important. And there are some enlightened individuals like Prince Albert, King Charles has been very, very powerful in using his influence to promote environmental issues. I had a conversation with Sultan Al-Jaber from the United Arab Emirates during COP28, and he's certainly one of those persons who we can count upon to move the climate agenda forward. And speaking about Sultan Al-Jaber, we co-produced, I mean, I supported your CC Forum in Dubai on the 6th, and you did graciously the same during my activation at the Grand Hyatt on the 7th, which was very well received by many of these influential people and impact investors who were there. Since we are now between COP28, December 2023, and the World Economic Forum in Davos, January 2024. So before asking you about your ongoing experience in Davos, how would you assess in a nutshell the results of COP28?
Okay. Well, if you'd like me to come up with an open and straightforward and transparent answer, I'm a tad disappointed, I have to admit. Well, there are good things and the bad things as well. I mean, the good thing is that it's for the first time, and that's historic. That there has been a phrase, a fully fledged phrase, acknowledging the need for society, for humanity, to walk away from the fossil fuel. And that's probably the most important consequence of aftermath of COP28. It has been worded, it has been included into the verbiage of the final statements. It hadn't happened up until then. The deplorable thing, though, or things, and those are foreign, quite galore, I'd say, the world, the climate finance certainly is not clearly moving ahead forward at the right pace, at a pace sufficient enough, because we're just really facing a very narrow window of the opportunity if we are to keep the Paris agreement's aims and goals and purposes alive. Okay, we really just, this is a decisive decade. I know I'm just harping on the same tune and reiterating what has been said times and again, but it is within the next 10 years max that we will know if we either consolidate all of our collective efforts and turn the tides, or the world will just not be the same as we know it today. I'm not at all a doomsmonger, quite the contrary. You know better than anyone else that CC Forum is all about getting the new technologies and startups and projects being heard and seen. But what I'm just saying, just trying to answer your question, I was a little bit disappointed with the outcomes of the forum of the COP28, because many of the heads of states, prime ministers, and presidents, they just came there and as if they were ticking off a box. Okay, it was a bit of a paying a lip service to the huge to the huge tasks we're all facing today. You know, it was not as in-depth as I was expecting. It was rather superficial and certainly not enough. And that's what really that left me a little bit disenchanted.
I see. And now being in Davos, attending the World Economic Forum, how do you see the impact of COP28, whatever it has been? I mean, for some has been a good result, for others has been disappointing. But how do you see the, let's say, the heritage or the legacy of COP28 in such a short period of time during the World Economic Forum, and also in perspective of COP29? But let's focus on Davos for a moment, and then we'll discuss the way forward.
Well, yes, I'm in Davos at the moment, and I've been just attending quite a few sessions here, many events. But I'll tell you what, again, that's a bit of a disappointment to me. It's a double disappointment. Not that, I mean, the most important value that Davos can bring is just, it's second to none in terms of networking, you know, making new contacts and waiting for once in a lifetime changing opportunity to meet the investor, whatever. That's probably the idea that most people are just having here. But in terms of the real impact, I would say the results of COP28, if you want to hear this sharing how they tell or how they're seen or heard from the Davos agenda, are infinitesimal. And that's probably the most deplorable thing of all, because suffice to say, there are hundreds, well, dozens certainly, but probably even hundreds of events of various sorts alongside with Davos. And very few of them, it's almost inconceivable, very few of them have to do with climate change. Yes, it's a little bit about impact investment here and there, a little bit of how we just hear more, you know, what the scientists have to say. It's a bit of more about integrating, you know, the government strategy, but there's nothing consistent. There is nothing systematic about it, okay? I've been getting the impression over the last 3 days that I've been in Davos that things are going very much the same way as they had been 10, 15 years ago. People are more carried away with integrating AI, which is a very important problem, but it's nowhere near as existential as a climate change. You know, like web, blockchain, which is all fantastic. So it's not enough. And just finally, to wrap up with that, the one edition of Davos Forum where I thought and hoped, and everyone was hoping, would make the difference was back in 2020, shortly before COVID-19 struck in, when Greta Thunberg was here. She was protesting, you know, walking around the streets. I thought the tide was changing back then, but now, even though we've seen the worst cataclysmic year in its historically, 2020, the hottest statistically, they don't seem to, you know, change dramatically, and that's really sad.
Yes, no, I totally agree with you, and that makes our work even more important for humanity. So I take that as an additional responsibility for us to push forward the climate agenda in all major global media activations, so to get you know, the highest level of visibility and impact, and also always connecting, as we said earlier, the elites, the decision makers, with the masses and the consumers, because, you know, everybody has to contribute to this paradigm shift. And now I must say that while I agree with you that the Davos and the World Economic Forum agenda is mainly focusing on profit, it's apart from, you know, a few conversations about AI, as you mentioned, is a very obsolete way of conducting business. But I must say that recently, as you well know, because we co-produced together a panel in Dubai about the new multi-trillion green and blue economies, I must say that the banking and finance sectors, including the big insurance companies, the pension funds, I mean, those who really control the global finances and the world economies, at least on paper, they have taken that pledge to transition the world finance towards sustainability and, you know, the new generation of technologies that are more sustainable, more responsible, and so on. So I feel that Davos, the leadership in Davos is still, you know, anchored to old paradigms, and maybe they, because maybe they live in a different cloud, they don't see you know, these dynamics unfolding and these opportunities as well. While
I'd like to add to that, I absolutely agree with you, Anso. It's always been so hugely politically over focused, politicized.
exactly.
I mean, we all understand, you know, the horrible conflicts that are taking place, unfortunately, as we speak in the world. That is not something we can ignore or neglect. Certainly not. But I would have thought humanity simply cannot afford to wage wars as we speak. So we have really much more existential issues facing today, all of us really. And what I'm trying to do with the CC Forum, I'm doing this for my kids and their generation, because I just simply don't want them to wage wars for food and water. It's just as simple as that.
Yes.
So by and large, really, I would have hoped that by now, Davos World Economic Forum would become more, you know,
Conscious.
cautious, right, and just would have taken more into account the problematics of climate change. And unfortunately, it's anything but that, really.
Yeah.
Largely.
I know, but yeah, I'm actually a little bit more optimistic than you, because obviously, you know, the World Economic Forum is a particular, you know, event with a specific agenda. But if you see the overall world economy, and you see all major economic sectors, industrial and productive sectors, from cars to hospitality, fashion, food, they all are moving towards becoming more sustainable, more responsible. In some cases, because they believe in it. In some cases, because the economy, you know, the consumers demand more of those products, and so they make more money in a sustainable economy rather than a traditional one. So, you know, these are generational evolutions anyway. We probably won't see those in our lifetimes to fruition, you and me, even though I know that we are going to live 120 years at least, because the planet needs us. And also there is a direct connection between sustainability and longevity, but this is a topic for another conversation. But jumping on this point, Max, you mentioned your children, and I'm sure that for them, having a father like you, a figure in their family that at least has consciousness about the importance of these issues, how you feel you have impacted their lives?
Well, okay, it's to a general question to answer in concrete terms, but we've been trying to make the impact with what we've been doing at CC Forum. Okay, first and foremost, I know for a fact that there are dozens of deals of various kinds are getting funded, are being heard, seen, visible. That's where we are making an impact. And I'm rejoiced as the event organizer when people send me an SMS message or write an email or just invite for a Zoom call, just saying how grateful they are because finally they found at one of the CC Forum editions the investor who finally has agreed to implement their life dream into reality. Okay.
Right.
There is a whole variety of those projects, and I know there's not just one-off. If it were one-off,
do you remember one that you can share with us? Do you remember one of these stories that you can share?
Okay, I probably won't give you the names because it's confidential, and I'm just still I'm obliged to keep it within the NDA frameworks. But I can give a variety of projects, like, for example, funding doing the carbon credits based on the huge multi-thousand-hectare land of rainforests in Congo, in the Congo Basin, or growing rice in the desert. Many reforestation projects, waste management, and these are all concrete examples of where the impact is really. So that's a good English saying, many mitten makes a mickle, or vice versa, just or every little helps.
Absolutely.
That's what we are staying away from sweeping statements. We leave to do the greenwashing to the politicians if they want to, and unfortunately, there is a lot of greenwashing at the governmental level. I hope you will agree with me. But what we're doing, we're trying to do we're making a concrete impact. And what I'm saying, since there are thousands of ideas, floating in the air, some of them are really groundbreaking, and then they can make a difference. We're trying to cherry-pick the best to present them to the investors community and really just get them flying.
Totally. No, I totally agree with you. And thank you for what you do. And I know that so many both investors that have been influenced by you and your vision and your work, as well as many entrepreneurs that have found, as you said, finally support, and that can change the lives of, as you said, of a forest or a community in Congo or in Ethiopia. So that's very commendable, and we need to do more and more of that. So Max, that my podcast, the mantra of this podcast is re-engineering the global climate agenda, because I think that there is a failing dimension of the current climate agenda that is certainly not successful, that needs to be redefined and re-engineered in terms of execution. And so this is a question that I ask to all my guests, starting with you, my dear Max, which is now transitioning from COP28 to World Economic Forum in Davos. Then there will be a number of activations in 2024, leading to the UN Climate Summit in New York, at the margins of the General Assembly, and then the COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan in December 2024. So if you would have a magic wand, so you would have no restrictions in terms of political decision-making, access to resources, human resources, financial resources. So it would be the ideal Aladino lamp for you at your disposal. What would you do? What would be the one key change that you would instill in the climate agenda so that COP29 will be much more successful and much more productive as compared to the previous ones?
Okay, I can answer this in two ways, really. Would my having a magic wand imply being teletransporting in time?
Yeah, whatever you think, it's, you know,
I have.
limitless, no limit.
I can use. I would have what I would have done if then, because if I had the magic power of touching my magic wand on a time machine, I would have transported the society back to the 70s and 80s. Because it turns out even back then, the oil giants, they were acutely aware of the negative impact that their activities were making on the planet, on the nation. And I would have just really raised the society in general to the potential risk of that. And it's just like, you know, if you have a cavity in your mouth, you know, just it's always better to do it at an early stage, because if you don't do that, you end up either at best with, you know, having a filling or having a tooth taken, or sometimes it's even more grave consequence. So that would have been easier to really to monitor, to you know, to implement back then. Now we are what we are. We're in. That's why my second part of the reply is this. If I had the magic wand to do things now, but certainly I don't have one. I'm not a politician after all. Okay, but if I were in Secretary General's shoes, I would probably go as far as to really move forward in a much more decisive way. So much so that I would impose legal and you know, regulations and laws, just really banning governments, prohibiting them supporting or financing, or banks financing and governments supporting any projects that would fall from within the SDG framework goals.
Right.
Okay. It hasn't been implemented. There's a lot of talk, recommendations, okay, but it hasn't materialized as a system, as a systematic regulation or set of regulations. That will have to be done without delay again. And I would have thought if I had the magic power of turning this around, that would be the one thing I would do.
Yeah.
If that's the question.
No, I totally agree again, and I think it's never too late. We have to keep doing that and influence parliaments and legislators to enforce, to emanate and enforce laws that you know, hamper or at least that are conducive to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is part of re-engineering the system, because, you know, you mentioned all these resolutions, like the General Assembly resolutions have no force on governments or societies in general. So they are in a way useless, you know, they are good intention statements. And so that system needs to be redefined and re-engineered. That's why I like to use that word of re-engineering, because we need a shake up of the political and legislative and financial systems. And now with technology, everything is easier to do, and it's also faster when you know, doing it in the right way. So Max, I really enjoyed this conversation. It was very fruitful, I'm sure, for our audience as well. So we will divulgate it, you know, as broadly as possible. This podcast will be broadcasted on all major platforms globally, also in several languages. And so, you know, we keep counting on your leadership, on your outstanding work. And, you know, you are one of the few at Davos that's really, keep the
Right,
flag high.
Davos, I'm showered with one question. When are you going to do your CC Forum in Davos?
Okay. Well,
I'm not that warm to that because, well, this would probably require a separate conversation.
Okay.
But I'm being nudged at every corner here. Which is quite amazing. But very much happy to be part of your initiative, Enzo, and very grateful to you and honored to have been probably the first in my team, the first guest at your podcast, which I'm sure is going to be a resounding success. And very happy to contribute onwards.
Wonderful. So we'll stay in touch. Thank you again for all good work,
Bye-bye.
your time. Best wishes. Goodbye.
Planet Gold, the stories of today's leaders in finance, tech, real estate, culture, and sustainability, where health is the new luxury and opportunities for a better future are being crafted by the second. Hosted by Enzo Di Taranto, engineered by Benedict Hadley. Planet Gold, a Circle X Hadley Broadcasting production.